today we're going to be giving context on the orders of operation on set. I'm Weston. I'm a film director and owner of a film production company.
I'm Drew. I'm a director of photography.
Okay, so today we have a question, another one from someone who's posted quite a lot of questions, which is great. Keep it up. Angels and Acid. And he asks, what's the order of operations when you arrive on location? Blocking, lights, camera. So there's a bunch of order operations in terms of the actual set elements, but I kind of want to leave this a little bit more towards what we figured out for camera items. What is helpful in terms of, do you set up the camera first, the lights first, location first, practicals, what is that kind of order operation? So Drew?
And this is something that we kind of change and update on every shoot that we do. Mm-hmm. There are some basics when it comes to the cinematography that we like to follow. First things first, with each setup, I like to set the camera up first. It should be the number one thing. I shouldn't be looking at that set through my own eyes. I need to look at it through the eyes of my audience, which is going to be through the camera. Mm-hmm. And then I go on to do my lighting. I guess from that point on, somebody else is thinking about other stuff, right? They're thinking about the blocking. They're thinking about, and I think that's all important to do after the camera setup as well. That way the camera can be moving with that, with that blocking. Yeah. I think we've talked about doing blocking on set before the cameras are even there. Yeah,
we've done a few times where we had like a block the day before, or like while cameras are being set up, sometimes we've had the chance to block. And really, there's kind of, I would say, almost two types of different blockings. We'll do one blocking where it's you run from start to finish of the scene in real time, like as if this was taking place in real life. And that kind of helps everybody get situated on the purpose of like what's going on. And then we'll do, like, once the camera's set up, we'll do like a block with just that individual shot, where it's like, okay, guy walks in from door and goes to table, you've got your 1 and your 2 positions, and then we block that position. And that's usually after the camera's set up, so everybody's practicing together.
That all comes after the set design itself, right? So
which is its own operation.
So that can be the day before, that can be weeks before, depending on if you have time in that location. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot that goes into it. And so that's why it's good to stay in your own lane, and everybody has their responsibilities, and they mesh a little bit. Mm-hmm. But that's what communication is for.
So going back to kind of the camera elements, so you set your camera up first, and I know that was one that we used to set up lights before, because we would light a room, and then we realized really quickly that's a horrible way to go about it. So camera first. Now, when you get to setting up the lighting, what's your order of lighting?
We've been really experimenting with the idea of starting with practicals. Almost every scene we're going to do is going to have some sort of lamp in it, or many lamps. It's a futuristic movie.
Glowing whatever.
Sci-fi or whatever. Yeah, they like to have glowing tables or,
LED lights.
The actual set pieces are creating that lighting. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you just start to fill things in. Depending on what you want, what kind of mood you're trying to build. What do you need to see in the frame? Conrad Hall liked to just point spotlights at things that you're supposed to look at. Yeah. And then kind of the last thing is if the contrast isn't quite what you want, or it's too dark, usually you can do a bounce light off the ceiling or something to kind of bring it up just a little bit.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of, as far as we've gone, it's we do practicals, we'll do backlight, then we'll do our key light, and then fill if needed. Okay. I mean, that's kind of what I think our process has been, really, because the fill is optional. Mm-hmm. It's not always needed. And then even sometimes the key is optional after you get your backlight. If we're doing kind of like a Richardson type light setup where it's like, your backlight is your key light, basically.
And honestly, I don't think like that. So I don't think in terms of, I need a key light. Unless I'm doing an interview. Yeah, that's true. Interview makes sense to me to be, all right, I need a key light, and then I need a backlight, and that you're pretty good to go.
Yeah, but for more cinema stuff, it just, here's my practicals and what needs to be.
Right, and what do we need to see? What and how do we want to see it? And usually that's going to be a backlight in most situations, but I've seen movies where they threw out the backlight idea, and
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, why did that work? But it
Don't know.
worked for some
Looks
reason.
good.
So I don't like to get too set on
Yeah.
this is okay. We're always going to do a 3 light setup.
We
Or
almost never do.
No. Usually it's like a 27 light setup. So
Lots of small lights
Yeah.
we found. Small lights in the background can be great. And then a few big ones to punch in on what you want.
I think it's important to be open. You have your, as you practice and you get better, you have your go-tos. But always be learning, always be observant and watching movies and stuff for how they're doing it, and especially how they're doing it differently, and how can you do it differently without it looking bad.
Yeah.
That's not my big question is like, how can I differentiate this while still using those rules? Because those rules are there because that's what makes it look so good. But at the same time, a lot of those rules get broken a lot. So.
Yeah. Now, let's say, so we've got everything set up and we're ready to start rolling. We've, as of recently, kind of developed a more refined system of communicating for taking a shot. So we started with calling out cameras up, which means Drew and his team are ready. Everything's ready. If you got a makeup person on set, they'll say the same thing, like makeup's up, or I don't know, faces up. I forget what they say. They say something.
Faces up.
The faces are up. But I think it's makeup's up, cameras up. So then that's cue for the slate person to come. Once we hear cameras up, it's like everybody stops talking, get ready. Person raises the slate and slates up, and that means everybody's pretty much ready to go. Once he says slates up, we ask like, ready. Everybody says ready, and then we start with, who starts?
We start with the sound, and then we do camera, and then we hit action.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll do, sound speed, camera rolling, and they slate it, action.
And by doing it the same every time, it just really streamlines that whole process. Because there was a long time where we didn't know who was going to start. And it was like, be
We were
looking
just
around
waiting.
for...
Yeah.
Weston has a tendency to forget to say cut at the end of it all. If we all know that we wait for cut, right? Then it keeps us away from any bad mistakes or cutting too early.
Reason why we learned was for doing audio before camera rolling is sometimes you'll have someone yell audio rolling, and then someone, oh wait, and it's less expensive technically to keep the audio rolling and then roll the cameras a little bit afterwards. But also in the edit, it's so much easier to sync it when the audio is a bit longer than the video. So that's usually why we end up doing that, audio rolling, camera rolling.
It also helps to have the slate up when the camera starts rolling, because that way the thumbnail, when you're trying to organize all that stuff
First
at the end of the
clip is
day, so it's just right there. You don't have any trouble.
Yeah, and that's one huge thing that we learned about kind of the order of operations is just making sure slates up and then camera roll. That way, like Drew said, when you're pulling up in the editing, you just have to look at the first frame of the thumbnail. Boom, you know exactly what your shot is, what your scene is, and you can file it away super quick. That's sped up our organizational process in post-production by, I don't know, probably 80% or something.
It's not something you think about a lot, but I mean, we spend hours just organizing your footage. And the more cameras you have, the more difficult it gets.
Angels and Asset, again, thank you so much for the question. Hopefully that helps. Again, it comes down to you kind of figuring out for yourself, test it on set, figure out what order works for you, but that's kind of the order how we've done it and what we've learned. And, a few years from now, some of it will change. And that's kind of the process of going through this. Again, I know 5 years ago, we were doing something very different than today. And right now, this way that we do it feels and functions a lot better. And we'll see kind of what changes in the future. For those of you who have other film production related questions, make sure to head on over to context.convo.org and submit your questions there. We look forward to answering what we can, and we look forward to having you guys on other Question and Contexts.